Hello, welcome to Inspiring Women with ADHD. I am Renee Allen, the host and creator of this podcast, and I'm so excited. I just mixed my words together. I'm so excited that you're here today. Today, I want to talk to you about organizing, setting up systems in your home with your spouse or other people in your home. It could be your husband, it could be your adult child, it could be your children. And it's not always easy because we're not always on the same page and we are all different. Last week, I was a guest host on, okay, I guess I'm not a guest host. I was a guest on another podcast called Connected for Real, and it hasn't been released yet. That episode won't be released till February. But the topic of that episode was organization in marriage. And as we talked about that, a lot of the things could apply to anyone. Some of the things applied more to people with ADHD. And today I wanted to get more into the ADHD part and share with you tips for observing or looking at the systems that you already have set up or how to design new systems in relationship with other people in your home. So to start with, just think of something in your home that you do regularly, like laundry. You probably have a laundry system that every day you throw something in the washer or dryer. That could be your system, that daily you wash things. Your system could be that you only do laundry on Thursdays, or that your older children do their own laundry, or you do yours, your husband does his, where you keep the baskets. All of that is part of what your system is in your home for doing the laundry. And there can be other systems you have. The kitchen, how often do you eat together? How do you keep the kitchen clean if you eat separately or if you eat together? How do you manage these systems? And I won't go through all the systems, but there are multiple that you have, even just organization in your closet or paperwork, bill paying, when the mail comes in. Where does the mail go when it comes in? Who pays the bills? Who disposes of paperwork? Who opens the mail? All those things. And each of us have these systems in our homes, whether we've decided to do it that way or it just kind of morphed into that at some point. A lot of systems do morph and they develop as they go. Or you can evaluate the system and see, is this the way I want to do it? Should I revamp it? How do I take care of these closets that are getting overrun? That sort of thing. Drawers, another thing. So just taking one of those systems, evaluate, think in your home, what's something that's a little out of control or that's not being managed well. And just understanding that you can make changes, or maybe the system that you have is fabulous, but maybe you're the only one who has an understanding of what that system is. Several years ago, I started realizing that I hadn't communicated to my kids why it was important to me to pick up their stuff when they left the living room and take it in their room, or why it was important to me that they didn't just leave the plate at the table if they came home from school, made themselves a pizza or something like that, and just left the things there. I could say, I like it clean. I want you to do this. I could have the simple things that I was probably saying. It was probably more like, hey, come clean this up, or me going and doing it because they weren't around, or that sort of thing. And I started realizing that I wasn't clear in communicating that I have an idea of how I like the house to look. And what I do when I leave a room is take the things with me into my room, or if I'm not going in my room yet, I'm just going to leave, maybe put it by the door or the bottom of the stairs if your room's upstairs, but share with them what my system is and ask them to be a part of it and see how they could help with that. And it was really, really helpful because I felt like I realized at one point that I was the only one defending the system. And a big part of that was I hadn't really explained what the system was. There have been times that I have, and it worked really well. When we lived in a different house and the kids were younger, I was a little frustrated with the kitchen getting messy. I don't like a messy kitchen. And if I clean it, I'd like it to stay clean, or if they clean it, I'd like it to stay clean. Although, of course, it won't stay clean forever because we eat in there. But I would do things to defend it, like put up a gate. And the gate would keep out the little children who couldn't get past the gate. But it would even let the older kids know the kitchen's closed. Don't go in there right now. Let's not mess up the kitchen. I'll be making food, or we'll have dinner at this time. When my kids were really little, they didn't respect the gate. Again, another house. Not that it matters to you, but I'm just picturing this in my mind. I had a baby gate at their bedroom so that if they went down for a nap, they couldn't leave in the room and run out. And sometimes they'd just fall asleep on the floor by the gate. And, that was as close as they could get to me, and that was fine. But I remember putting up a gate in the kitchen to defend my system of keeping the kitchen clean, or to keep them from going in and getting food and running around the house with it. And they started taking a chair from the dining room, and they'd put it up to the gate and climb over it. And I thought, well, that's not happening. So I bought a second gate and made it so there were two, probably 3 feet gates. Those went up 6 feet, and they couldn't get past it. We were renting that house, so I couldn't just build a door. But sometimes you can make them a part of it with giving them information. Sometimes you just have to manage it by recognizing what works, what doesn't. But with with the people that you have that you can work with, let's just talk about your husband. If you are married, you have a husband, you get married, you probably start to recognize, whether you've talked about it or not, what your differences are and what your similarities are in your standards for cleanliness, or your preference for how things are organized, or your enjoyment or not of cleaning or organizing. Do they like to do that? Do you like to do it? And that's important to define, whether it just happens because you start to learn that by living together, or you talk about it. And sometimes, for me and my husband, we've been married 37 years, a long, long time. There were things that he would say, like, I love deep cleaning, or I like to have a really clean car. I didn't care about having a clean car. I was fine in my car as long as I could see out the front window. If I could see out the windows, I was fine. I didn't care if the kids ate in the car. My husband cared if the kids ate in the car. So they didn't eat in his car, and we ate in my car. So, because to me, it was important for the kids to be happy, give them snacks, that sort of thing. I didn't care about the cleanliness of the car, but he did. So having two cars, that was helpful. But looking at that was really helpful in defining your systems and knowing who might care about this being clean. You might have a husband who doesn't care about things being clean, and maybe you don't either. And so your standard for cleanliness would be different than somebody else who really likes to have the house clean and picked up all the time. My daughter and her husband both have that standard and are able to stay on top of it. They've taught their kids, they have 4 children, they've taught their kids that when they finish something, or when it's time to do the next thing, it's not more like, when you're done with that puzzle, put the puzzle away. They don't self-manage themselves. Their oldest child is almost 10. She'll be 10 this summer. I don't know that they do that where they just do it on their own, but when it's time to eat, my daughter or her husband will say something to the kids like, got to clean up the toys and then we'll eat. Or when they are going to leave to go somewhere, okay, clean up your stuff and then we'll go get in the car. They always bring the room or all the toys that have been taken to other rooms. They bring the house back to cleanliness before they do the next thing. And their kids are just quick And even when I go stay there and take care of the kids, they do it for me too. It's not just oh, my parents make me do this. They're happy to do it and they enjoy having a clean house. And so that works for them. Not everyone cares about that as much, or they might have different organization techniques. When I was growing up, it was important to my mom, and she was home a lot more than my dad was. My dad worked very, very long hours, and I didn't see him very much during the week. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom until after I became an adult. She became a school teacher. But she had very high standards, and it was in her family, her sisters, my grandma and grandpa. When I go to their house, if you looked in their linen closet, their towels are folded perfectly. Their sheets were folded perfectly. And when you looked at them, they always had like a clear bump that was in the front, if this makes any sense. So the towel would never show an edge. You'd never turn it to where you'd see the edge of the towel or the bottom or the top. It would always be that bump. So you'd see all these little curves, and they fold the towel the same way. And when I learned to fold clothes, I learned to do that too and fold it that way. When I got married, I thought that's how we fold a towel. My husband folded it differently. And I thought, huh. But then I realized that according to what closets we had in different houses, different apartments, I folded it to fit that shelf. So it might be more like what my husband did, which the way my mom did it, she folded it into thirds the long way first, and then into thirds again. And so not only did you have that roundness at the front, but on the sides, you didn't have any edges that peeked out or something. Where my husband's was more folded in half and folded into thirds. And over the years, I've done it different ways to fit the closet because I needed a new system, because I wanted to make use of that shelf in the best way. That was my priority, instead of continuing the tradition of how my mom had it. What was super interesting to me was several years ago, I was staying with my aunt and uncle, and I looked in their linen closet. Maybe they said, go get a pillowcase, or if you need towels or something. And the linen closet was chaotic. It wasn't even close to like my mom's, but what they did with the sheets is they just kind of, they probably came out of the laundry, kind of rolled them up into a ball and stuffed it onto the shelf. It had lots of stuffed sheets or pillowcases or whatever. And none of it was folded, and none of it was in that orderly way. But it was their system. And I kind of liked learning that they did that, because their house was clean, their house was organized, but that's how they did their sheets. And I thought, I like that. Like, you don't have to have this level of, the standard in order for it to be organized. They knew where their sheets went after they did the laundry. They knew where to find them. Then I went to stay with one of my old roommates once in San Diego, and she handed us our sheets, and I had a lot of kids. We all stayed there. She had lots of rooms, and she handed each of us what looked like a gift, like a present, that was a box with a bow on it. But what she did was she folded up the sheets. She folded the fitted sheet, and then she took this, what's it called? I was going to say straight sheet, the flat sheet, and put the fitted sheet inside of it. So like before doing the final fold, she kind of sandwiched it together. Like if you take a piece of bread and you make a sandwich just by folding the bread in half, and it has that roundness. So it did that. So the flat and the fitted were there. She didn't try to get all the bumps out like my mom does with the fitted sheet, but she did that. Then she took that little package and she put it, and maybe you already know this kind of thing, but this was news to me. She put it in a pillowcase, and then she folded the pillowcase in half and tied it with a bow. She had ribbon, and she put a ribbon around it because she thought it was fun that when she needed another set of sheets, she would get a package like that she got to open. And I might have done that a few times after, but I think I didn't keep up with the ribbon part. Maybe I didn't have a good place for the ribbon after I used it, or I'd have to put it away, or it got lost or something. But I have continued with that system of the folded sheet goes over the fitted sheet, put it inside the pillowcase. Because what's great, and if you have more than one pillowcase, so let's say it's, queen, king, you could put that inside of that fitted sheet, and you put it all inside one big pillowcase. So you've got multiple pillowcases, but then you can find things that match really easily. And I actually haven't kept up on that for all the rooms in our house, but I've done it for my sheets or my husband's sheets. But it was a fun little system, and learning that different people have different preferences, or it can change over time, is great. And sometimes learning that, or communicating with somebody else, that this is a system that I'd like for our towels not to just be thrown in there, or when we're done with a towel, if you have a swimming pool, hang it up over this clothesline or hang it on this hook. Communicating that is important, and then you're not walking around going, I can't believe no one hangs up the towels, or this towel's on the ground again. Just communicating that is really helpful. Back to kitchens. So this is something that I did many years ago. So I'd done the gates. I'd had the gates when my kids were little. And then I even put in, those wooden accordion gates? In another house, I put in one like that, so that it was always there at the kitchen. And there wasn't a doorway. There was just kind of the wall that was on the outside of the fridge. And then there was a counter that kind of wrapped around. It wasn't the hugest kitchen. It was kind of an L-shaped counter. And I found that I couldn't get a baby gate to fit that, but I could buy one of those accordion gates and put it on little, they're kind of like silver loops or something, where it could swing open and go back. And if it was locked, I told the kids, don't go in the kitchen. It's clean right now. I don't want it to get messy. And eventually the kids were older and I stopped doing the gate. They probably were appreciative, but the kitchen wasn't always staying clean. And for whatever reason, it bothered me, because it can fall apart, probably because it can fall apart so fast. And I don't know if you're like this, but if you have that ADHD brain, one of the things that can happen is you have a lot of ideas. You also have because you have a idea or a lot of thoughts, you can have also a running to-do list that everywhere you look, it's a to-do list. So you might be doing the laundry and you have to go from your bedroom past the kitchen to get to the laundry room, and you see the kitchen and it's getting really messy again. And instead of thinking, oh, I'm almost done with the laundry, this feels great, you see the kitchen and it's messy and you think, oh, I can't believe I don't want to do that tonight, or no, I got to get the kids to do it. It's a lot easier to maintain than it is to do an overhaul and clean it when it's super messy, or the stuff is kind of dried into the cup, or, when they don't rinse out the milk and all that kind of stuff. So I made a little card. It was just a 3x5 card. And I mentioned this on this podcast last week because I kind of forgotten about it. But I made a card. I wrote with a pretty little pen, and it just said something like, please keep the kitchen clean. I think that's all I wrote. I might have said to her that I said, please put dishes in the dishwasher, but I think I said, please keep the counters clean. And it worked amazingly well. Our kitchen stayed clean for months. And one day I thought, and I don't have a laminator, but I think I even took clear tape and put clear tape over it a few times on both sides so it looked laminated and everything. And one day I thought, I guess we don't need this anymore. So I was taking it down, and my son walked in and he said, oh, good, we don't have to keep the kitchen clean anymore. And I thought, that is so funny that sign was so powerful for him, that when he saw it, he thought, this is what I need to do, and thought that if I was removing it, he didn't need to do it anymore. And I said, no, you still need to keep the kitchen clean and put it back up. But that communicated to him, when he might not be mindful of it at some point, that we had a system, and that it'd be nice if we could keep that system going. I'm not expecting anything to be perfect ever, but if I can keep it clean for as long as I can, then I function better during the day. And so that's my preference for cleanliness. My preference for organization is, actually, my preference for cleanliness isn't that high. I had a friend once, and it'd be interesting for you to evaluate. So she said, when my kids were younger, and she was about 10 years older than me, she said, I would tell people, our house is clean. I think she would tell her husband, the house is clean, it's just not picked up. It's not picked up, like if you come home, because I guess that mattered to him. And she wanted to let him know our house is clean. Our kids are living in a clean house, but it's not always picked up because we live here. And I thought, can't say that for me for cleanliness. My mom is somebody that you could eat your dinner off the floor and it'd probably be clean most of the time. And not me. It takes a lot of effort, and I'm okay with. I do that big sigh because sure, I would love it to be perfectly clean all the time, but that's not what weighs on my mind. That's not what bothers me. If I see dust or something like that, what bothers me is when it's not organized or it's cluttered. And so understanding that in your relationships, if it's an even relationship, adult children or a husband, but if did I just say equal relationship or even? Yeah, even relationship where you both could have some input on this and also have some expectancy of how you take care of it. But if it's your house and your adult children are living there with you, you're a single mom, you can decide and you can let them know for sure. But getting input from your kids can be helpful too on what they like to do, what they don't like to do. And it's not like we only give them responsibilities that they love to do. But I've learned over time that the responsibilities that my kids had, they became very good at them, very good at them. But back to recognizing your differences and similarities, knowing if they have ADHD or not, super helpful. And recognizing that. So maybe you have ADHD, but your husband does not. Or you do, and so do two of your children. I didn't always have this information. I didn't know I had ADHD most of my life. And I didn't understand that my children did either. Now that I understand that, and I look back at my expectations for my youngest son, no wonder he forgot to clean up because I would forget too. No wonder he would think, I'm going to leave the room and I'll come back and take care of this. He would forget. He has that same tendency as I do. And maybe that's why I put a lot of pressure on myself to take care of it now because I will forget. I will forget in fact, today I was doing a lot of cleaning because someone came over and he didn't even go past the first room. So but I got a lot of cleaning done because I thought he might go into our main room. But anyway, every time I'd walk, back and forth, meanwhile, listening to a podcast or a TV show, I think I was listening to a podcast. Anyway, that's what kept my mind quiet. And I was able to boop, 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 go from room to room, put this away, put that away. And every time I leave one room, go in another, I think, oh, you need to put that gate away. I put up a baby gate because my grandson was here this morning. And sometimes I do that to prevent him from going upstairs because what he did today was and they were very lightweight, but he took some toys and threw them over the railing. And I thought, I can't have him do that because one time he threw over or dropped a heavy car, like a Hot Wheel, but bigger, a lot bigger. And that could have really hurt someone. So I've been real mindful of watching him or not letting him go up there or putting up the gate. And he's been a lot better about not throwing things. Today it was just 2 little Nerf bullets, but I thought it could be something else. He's only 4, but he hasn't been diagnosed yet, but I'm sure he has ADHD like his older brother. So his impulse control is getting worse and reminding me a bit of his father, one of my sons. So understanding that, my expectation is different and my management of it is different. My system for that is different, having a gate so he can't go upstairs, and understanding how to work with people who might be helping you in your house or you're all working together. So also the tendency to hyperfocus. So this is interesting because if you do organization projects with your husband, do you do it differently than he does? My daughter has mentioned this, that she's more of a hyperfocuser than I am, and she has ADHD. She's the one that keeps her house super, super clean. But she said her method when they do big project kind of things is different, that she'll really focus on a certain area where her husband's just going through it really fast. And it's super effective, but a different way. My husband's the same way. And in some ways, I love working alone much, much more because I can hyper focus. When I'm more aware of other people, it's harder. It's harder to get stuff done. But in fact, I was just thinking about this today. So have you ever been doing something, like you're working on something, and someone says, "Do you need help with that?" And you're just kind of thinking, "No, just let me get this done." Have you ever done that? I've been noticing that lately, that when people ask me if I want help, I think no, because I'm in a groove, I'm getting it done. And if I stop, it's going to take more effort to start again and to even make up a plan. I've especially noticed this when I'm moving. I've had people come over and help us box things up, and it's super, super helpful. I'm not saying I don't appreciate it. And actually, I super appreciate it, but it just takes a lot more effort. I have to get into a different mode, that I'm not working by myself. I'm not watching the Johnny Depp trial. The last time we moved was when the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial was going on. And I even did a free premium YouTube trial so that I could listen to it in my phone while getting stuff done, while packing and taping up boxes and organizing and stuff. With If you have YouTube Premium, then you can go into a different app at the same time and it won't stop it. It kept stopping it if I would go into something else. And maybe, no, that wouldn't help. Because I know YouTube has podcasts too. They have podcast channels, and I have one, but that does include video. I was just wondering if that was a different qualification, like if they would let you go out of that because it was just audio. And mine basically is just audio. It's just my podcast art while I do that. Oh, back to the podcast I was on last week. I think I probably mentioned last week, but it was on video and it was tricky. I have a hard time in Zoom meetings. Do you have a hard time in video calls, or especially when it's more of a meeting and there are other people there? I'm super aware of trying to sit still and I can't. And I'd much rather walk around, have my camera off. And so it's a combination, if you have this too, where you don't want to bother other people. So you don't want to have like your background changing and have them get distracted because you're being distracting. And it's also a combination of having a really hard time sitting still. So I thought about it quite a bit before I was on that podcast, because I have a hard time sitting in a chair. Just the same way I have to, change and sit kneeling or cross my legs or do different things. And what I did is I ended up setting up where I am right now. I usually have been sitting in a chair to record this podcast, but I put my laptop on a lower table instead of on my desk. And I used my yoga cushions to just sit on, kneel on, move around, so that my height wasn't changing that much, but I could move. So anyway, oh my goodness, that is quite a tangent from talking about organization. But yeah, so sitting still. Sitting still. Do you have ADHD or not? Okay, so hyper-focusing, going back to different parts of ADHD, that if you have ADHD and your husband doesn't, let's just go with that relationship right now. You might have different styles of getting things done. And you may have a hard time with visual clutter. And so that makes it more overwhelming. Besides already having a big project to do, the visual clutter can get in the way of being able to just start or do it. It's often helpful to have other people because you're doing that co-working thing and it's kind of, okay, let's do this. Let's do it together. But making a little system within your system. So you're trying to create a system, cleaning out a closet, deciding where your linens will go, where the kids' games will go. So that's going to be the system of that closet. But you can also have a system for cleaning and organizing. And that's super, super helpful. And I'll talk about that for Thursday's episode, the systems that you have for organizing, not the system that you're creating. But just an example is having 3 bags. One says thrift store, one is for trash, and one is just to put things in a different room. And you're just not having to leave, but it has the simplicity of whether it's 3 boxes, 3 bags, 3 whatever it's in that you're going to carry away. It's better if it's in the real thing than if it goes into a box that you later transfer into something else. Because if you touch it more than once, there's a good chance you might change your mind if you're getting rid of it. At least for me, it's hard. I try to go to, you considered getting rid of this. That means you probably should. If you're even willing to get rid of it at the point of considering it, you're farther than you were last year at this time. Yeah, there's so many layers to organizing, isn't there? But if you have a hard time working in a cluttered environment, do what you can to clear it out. Sometimes taking everything out of that closet and then putting things back in helps you see a clear space to begin with. So those can be differences or similarities, and maybe just sharing that this is how I'm going to do it, and this is the bag for throwing things away or whatever. And then, do you need a big chunk of time to organize or create a new, to clean up, organize, whatever it is? You might not just be, like you think about doing laundry. Maybe you already have your system set up, but does it work better for you to do it all in one day? And on Thursdays, you're not going to go anywhere else. So that's going to be your laundry day. Does it work better for you to do stuff in small bits? I'll do a little bit today, a little bit tomorrow, then I'll do this. That can work wonderfully. But if you have the forgetful nature of ADHD, that can cause challenges, because raise your hand if you've ever done a little laundry in the washer and then you go in there 3 or 4 days later and you never moved it to the dryer and it smells really bad. And then you have to wash it again. So yeah, small bits can be great if you can remember what to do. And it's also great if it's really overwhelming for you to get started. It's really great if you just do a little bit, because it might turn into a bigger chunk of time. But sometimes I really limit myself. Like, if I don't have enough time, if I don't have 2 hours to clean my desk, I'm not going to clean my desk, because I need I need that container. Like, it's almost like a box that I can go in. And I believe I can get it done in this amount of time. And then I can do it because I feel positive about it. But if I know I have to be somewhere, that might be weighing on my mind. So it's just such an example of how our brains can get in the way. What we think can interfere with our ability to get things done, to accomplish what we want to do. Back to relationships. So this is with a husband and wife relationship, with your spouse, identifying love languages and the impact that can have on cleaning or organizing. And this is something that we explored a little bit in that podcast last week, which is interesting because she works a lot. She is a coach with women in business who are married, who believe in God. So that's her niche. And so she thinks about how couples get along more than I probably talk about here on my podcast. But we talked about how if one person's love language is service, what I do for this person is showing my love to them. Then while I'm doing it, if it matters a lot to me to have a clean, organized house, and I walk into my house and it's not like that, and I feel so different than I would if I walked in and it is all clean, then I'm assuming that my husband feels the same way, and that it will be a great gift for him if I clean that for him. And I've recognized that I do that not only for him, but for my kids. That, she will like it. My daughter Lexi will feel so happy when she gets home from work and she sees that the kitchen's clean. Because then if she feels like making dinner, because we don't very often eat together, but she'll often make dinner on her own. And I do when everyone's coming over. But I'll think, oh, Lexi will appreciate this, or I'll think my husband would appreciate this because it's something I appreciate. And I think creating that for him will make him happy. Early in our relationship, before we were even married, I was at the house that he was living in, that he was renting with some friends in college. And I don't know where he was and why I would have been there without him. But I thought it would be wonderful to organize his closet because I loved doing that when I was growing up, going into my closet and and looking at all the clothes on the hangers and making the hangers match and putting them in a certain order. And if the shoulders were kind of slipping down, I'd pull them up and then you button them so they stay on the hanger better, or the coats or whatever. So I did this one day in his closet and thought, isn't this the greatest thing? And when he came home, I said, look what I did. I organized your closet. Doesn't this look great? Look how wonderful this looks. And he looked at it because it wasn't his system. It wasn't a system that works for him. He said, now I'm going to have to unbutton each of those shirts when I want to put them on. He liked to just have a shirt on the hanger, whether the shoulder was slipping off or not, where he could just grab it and go. And here I was having fun with the hyper-focused nature of it, button every shirt, putting it on. And I thought, oh, and I wasn't mad or anything. I just thought, oh, well, I had no idea. That this wouldn't be as great of a gift for you as it would be for me. And then understanding that I'm doing that because I think not just that he would like it, but that's my way of showing love. And that if he doesn't do something like that for me, even if he knows that's how I like it, that's okay because that isn't his love language. That's not his love language. So when I came home once from being gone for a week, my kids were all home. My husband was there and his brother was there living with us at the time, living in a room off of the garage. And I came home and I remember walking in and there were toys all around, which is funny now. I'm thinking they were little kids, but it didn't look like, well, it didn't happen, but it didn't look like my husband had thought, Renee's going to be home in an hour. Let's all clean up. So when she walks in the door, it'll be all clean. It didn't look like he did that because he didn't do that. And that's okay. But that's what I would have thought of because I'm the service love person. One of my daughters has that same acts of service love language. And she would do that a lot when she was a teenager. Mom's been out of town. Everyone go in here. She would vacuum the living room and defend it to the death. Don't walk in the living room. Mom's going to come home. I want her to see. She wanted me to see the lines because she knows that I like that. And it probably makes me sound like I'm a super, super clean person all the time. I'm not. But that worked because we both had that same love language. But if his love language is words of affirmation, and mine's not, but he's done something and I'm not recognizing that. I don't have to recognize everything, right? But if it's not in my nature to just say, oh, isn't it wonderful that you just cleaned out the garage? He's super good at cleaning the garage. And it's, I would say 99% his garage. He works on cars. He enjoys that. And I've had to fight for any space in the garage for years. And I'm okay with that. I have a lot of other space. In fact, in our clothing closet, when we moved here, this is our first big closet. That's a walk-in closet. And it's pretty big. And he said, I only need that fourth back there. I have 3/4 of it. That's pretty nice. But in the garage, I know that he likes to have, and he has a lot of things that he needs to put in there. So the only things I've been able to have in the garage were a second fridge, but we don't in this house. We have it in the laundry room because the laundry room is really big. And in this one, I have, like the camping chairs, beach chairs, and stroller for grandchildren and baby seats or whatever, the booster seats. That's it. And they're kind of hiding in a corner. But anyway, yeah, just recognizing those differences because otherwise you might not feel recognized, or you might feel like they don't care. And just recognizing those differences can help with that. And the impact it has on whether the other person has things clean or organized or not. Or if they say anything, if you've done it and they haven't said, oh, that's great that you did that. Maybe they're not a words of affirmation person and they don't think to do that, even if you need it. It can be something that you talk about and maybe request more of. I've never done that, but I know a lot of people do. And so once you recognize all these differences, appreciating and respecting your differences is really important. You each have different strengths. You have different things that you may just fall into a mode of, I end up paying the bills because I'm better with that, or I'm fine doing that. I do the taxes because I'm fine doing that, where my dad does the taxes. So, it's just, what do you enjoy or what can you stomach? Some people are just like too overwhelmed. I can't do that. So I'll take care of the paperwork. Oh, paperwork's a hard one with ADHD, just managing it for sure. But also recognizing that we each change over time. And even though we might understand at one point what differences we might have, that might change. And just observing that, continuing to notice each other's needs, respect them, and also just noticing if a system that you have isn't working anymore and communicating that, or just taking care of it and then later telling people what you did. Sometimes you don't have to communicate everything that you do to organize your home, for sure. But sharing that, being proud of it, I love doing that. Look, I just did this area where the printer is because it was such a cluttered mess. And I bought these little plastic containers to put the junk mail in, and which you would think I'd just throw the junk mail away. But some of it I can throw away, some of it I shred, and some of it, I don't know if you deal with this, if you get a ton of credit card offers, some of it comes in envelopes that has really hard paper in it that you can't just shred the whole thing. And so sometimes I put it in a little box to deal with later, the deal with later box. But yeah, even if you are working independently to organize your home or to come up with a system that works for your family, communicating your need to have things a certain way, or even to purchase something that might cost a lot more than you just think to buy without talking to your husband, is important. Like buying a second refrigerator. I thought, okay, this first refrigerator, it's big, it's nice, but I do need more space for food. So that was something I talked to him about before I did it. And you can find solutions. Sometimes it helps to get input from the other person. My husband had an idea when we moved into our house. We have, like I mentioned, this large walk-in closet. And in the middle of the closet, dividing the right side and the left side, I guess that's what the middle does, was probably a 5-foot shelf that had cubby holes in it to put shoes in. So you can put them all the way from the right side to the left side. And so we put some shoes in there, and I was using more than he was. But I also found some boxes that fit, the little, they have them in gray or whatever. They're kind of like a cheap fabric boxes, or some baskets that were that size to put socks in, or little things like that. And my husband had this idea for a different system. He said this closet wouldn't feel so, whatever feeling it was giving him, the whole feng shui thing, it didn't feel open enough for him. So he said, I could cut the bottom of this shelf. It was built in to the floor, and it's a wooden floor, a hardwood floor. He said, I could cut this and put it at the back wall, and we'll still have those same shelves, but they won't be dividing the closet. It won't feel as restricted every time you walk in, like you're walking down a little hallway on one side and a little hallway on the other side. And I kept thinking, but yeah, it's connected to the floor. It's not going to be a good thing, because then we're going to have a space in the middle that doesn't have any hardwood. And he goes, no, I think it'll just come up. And so he mentioned it a few times over the first almost 2 years of living here. We've been here for 2.5 years. And this last summer, which I tend to do too, I don't know if you do this, but this last summer when I was on a trip, I was gone and he just did it. And it didn't upset me or anything, but it made me laugh because he used to travel a lot for his work. And I would do that a lot. There were a lot of things that I wanted to do that I thought he's just going to say, "Why are you moving that couch upstairs?" So I would wait until he was gone on a trip and then I'd do it because then I didn't get his input. so, so that's what he did. He cut it at the bottom. And sure enough, it didn't leave like a slate floor or anything, but he had to leave about, I don't know, 4 inches of the bottom of it. I don't know how he cut it, actually. He did an amazing job. But I kept even saying, I don't think it would measure right to fit at the back wall. It did. And now instead of it being this long, wide triangle or rectangle, it's a tall, more narrow. And so the shelves go up a lot higher. And it does feel 1,000 times better in there. But me being the klutzy person doesn't want to trip over that 4-inch thing at the bottom. And so we came up with a little idea. Again, another little system. He was thinking, put a whole bench over it, and you can sit on the bench to put on your shoes or whatever. And after hyper-focusing and looking at benches for probably 3 weeks, reading reviews and all that, and it was hard because it had to be narrow enough to not take up too much space in the closet, but not be so narrow. And a lot of the narrow benches have the legs too close together to fit over that little rectangular box at the bottom. Anyway, I ended up just buying a small bench at Home Goods that could just be on the end and put that there. And we used the rest of it to put laundry baskets on or something for his laundry or my laundry. And it works fine. So it's still a little divider, but I'm not going to trip over it. Thankfully, the bench reminds me not to trip on it. But yeah, so evaluating systems, communicate, or if they're not on your page and you don't want to upset them too much, they'll understand later. But yeah, you work together and sometimes you work independently. But you're both in your home and you want to enjoy being in your home together and you want to feel like you're not fighting a force that's against your system. Because that's what I felt that time when I started realizing I'm the only one that understands how I'd like the house to be. And my kids, instead of being helpers, they're all fighting against it. And it really made a difference once I communicated that to them. And all the other things, even just talking to your husband about hiring help, and maybe you already do. That's something that really frees a lot of women with ADHD is if they're overwhelmed and they can't manage it and they have the funds to do so, hiring help to clean, even just a bit, can make a difference. I hired someone to clean our bathrooms last year. And it didn't end up for her to continue doing it. But what was nice is just because she was going to walk in and be downstairs, the day that she came, I got so much more clean really fast, an hour or two before, because I knew she was coming. So that's the little secret people talk about is you clean before the house cleaner comes. But she did help with a lot of things. And I kind of wish I could do it again, but I don't think it's happening right now. But yeah, discussing options for outsourcing if you need to, and also planning together how to involve your children if you have children at home to support the systems in your home. My husband did that a lot where he was really helpful. He liked for our kids to do work and had a quote that he liked to say was, work is the source of happiness, prosperity, and self-esteem. So he thought if your kids are helping keep our house clean, they're going to feel good about themselves to know that they polished up those kitchen cabinets and now they look amazing. Because the things that matter to him are like those kind of things. I mentioned to you that he restores old cars and stuff. So surfaces are more important to him, where I don't notice the fingerprints on the cabinets, but he would have them buff it out and stuff like that. And they actually really, really loved things like that, kind of a hyper-focused task, or, just cleaning all the windows, something that's simple that helps them. And even teaching them how to not be overwhelmed as much. Another saying my husband liked to have little sayings was one by one until it's done. And so when we went in and said, you guys need to clean your room, and my younger son was thinking this isn't possible, we'd say, okay, start with the Legos, one by one until it's done. All the Legos in this box. Okay, now the puzzles and that sort of thing. So anyway, yeah. Yeah, it's a process for sure, staying organized, because life isn't always orderly. We don't always have time to maintain things. And if you ever get sick or injured, that interferes more. Or if you just aren't home that much, or you have a lot of people around, it's not simple. But it is possible to continue to evaluate and improve when you can. And if you can't, don't fret because that's life. But I think that's it for today. I appreciate you listening and being a part of my podcast. It's just me, the one woman show, and which really just means, I had an idea and I wanted to do this. And so I really appreciate knowing that many of you are out there listening. Thank you for doing that. And if you have anyone you can share it with, I would love that. I'd love to grow our audience and our community and have a vision of one by one until it's done. It's going to take me forever to do it, but to create a community where we can have online communication, not just a Facebook group, but actually have accountability groups and work together and work on things that can be challenging for women with ADHD. But feel free, tripping over my words at the beginning and the end, but feel free to go to my website, renee-allen.com, reneeallen.com, with a little dash line in between Renee and Allen. And I will be back in a few days. Thank you. Bye.
Open windows, broken shadows. Frozen dreams are left for tomorrow. Without a cause. No time for a pause. The silence of sound has yet been found, but not by me.